quality of life you live here on earth and the quantity of life you live here on earth is highly determined by the choice of woman or man you will marry. Yes, your quality of life, your quantity of life is highly determined by the choice of woman or man you're going to marry, or the man or woman you're already married to. So if you despise knowledge and you make a wrong choice or you're taking wrong decision, there is a very high probability that you're not going to live a good quality of life here on earth. There is a high probability that you will not live long. Yes. So if I shock you that marriage is the closest thing to heaven and it is also the closest thing to hell, I'm sure you're going to reconsider the way you're treating your marriage. Yes, that's right. Marriage is the closest thing to heaven and it is the closest thing to hell. So the way you treat your marriage is it highly determines how you will live. I don't know what you think about heaven. I don't know what you think about hell. Maybe you think heaven and hell, they are experiences here on earth. Maybe you think heaven and hell, they are in a world that is yet to come. Maybe you think heaven and hell don't even exist. I'm not interested what you think about heaven and hell. But truth be told, you will agree with me that the marriage you're currently experiencing has actually determined whether you're happy or you're unhappy. Just compare the marriage you're living right now or the marriages you're seeing around you, and you compare to when you were single, when they were single, you'll see that it is a high determinant factor whether their quality or quantity of life is better when they were single or it's better now married. So marriage is a determinant factor how well you will live your life here on earth. So treat marriage with more diligence. Now, you might not agree with me that marriage is a bed of roses. But because of the challenges you're facing in your marriage, there are so many challenges. Some people say this, some people say that, and the world has come to the conclusion that marriage is not a bed of roses. I stand here to debunk that knowledge because the marriage God designed, He designed it and placed pleasantries. He placed so many roses in that marriage for your enjoyment. You didn't just know where the pleasantries are found. You didn't just know where these roses are positioned, that you could pick them up and begin to enjoy. God designed marriage for your benefit, for your enjoyment, for you to live life happily. So if you're experiencing challenges in your marriage, I have one thing to tell you. You are only exposed to your area of ignorance. Because anything you're challenged in, anything you're experiencing as a challenge is an exposure of your area of ignorance. And it is time you get yourself learned in that particular area. Now, whatever you're challenged in when it comes to marriage, I want to tell you that not everybody is experiencing that same thing. Some people don't have that challenge. The thing you call is a challenge for you. Some people don't have that challenge. So what is the difference between the person that is facing the challenge and you that is not facing the challenge? The difference between the two is that one person has knowledge, one person knows something, and the other person doesn't know the thing. So the difference is knowledge. That's why you should not despise knowledge. That is the reason why you should subscribe to this channel. The reason why you should turn on the notification bell and get yourself some adequate knowledge. You're welcome to this safe space of mine. This is the School of Marriage, and we are in a series titled Marriage is a Bed of Roses. I will say it a million times, a million and a million over and over. I will say it again. Marriage is a bed of roses. So, are you experiencing the roses in your marriage? Don't go. I have many good things for you. It is high time you get adequate knowledge. It is high time you get yourself fed with what it takes to enjoy that marriage. It's never too late. You might have already been in error. It's not late. you can correct those errors. Maybe you think it's late, you can correct the errors for your children, for those that are still coming into it. So I want you to know one thing, that God alone planned marriage. God alone designed marriage. God alone structured marriage, and He is the one that ordained it for your enjoyment. You should know that God is a relational being. God has never been isolated, and He has never intended to be isolated. And when He created mankind, He never intended that mankind should be isolated. So God lives eternally in a union that is inseparable. God lives in a bond that is inseparable. God lives in a oneness, a marriage that He, in creating marriage, the earthly marriage, His intent was that the earthly marriage should reflect this heavenly union, this eternal bond, this eternal oneness that God lives in eternity. So He created marriage to reflect, to actually show forth that which is happening in the heavens. So in that marriage, you are supposed to have it in mind that it is not your idea. It was God's own idea. God alone designed it. And when He was doing that, you and I were not there. When God was designing, placing the foundation of marriage, He didn't take your feelings into consideration. He didn't take your emotions. He didn't take your experience into consideration. He alone placed parameters that were to guide us into enjoying the pleasantries, the roses He has placed in that particular department called marriage. I want you to know that marriage is the heartbeat of God. If God lives eternally in a union that is inseparable, and He designed that the earthly marriage should reflect the heavenly marriage, you should understand that God's heart is in your marriage. He didn't keep you in a marriage and abandon you there. He didn't design a marriage and allow it vague. He's not a vague God. He's an organized and well-structured God. He planned everything before we were even formed. But yet when we came in, we allowed the world to define marriage to us. And the world defined marriage based on their experiences. The world defined marriage based on what they are feeling, based on their emotions. But I want you to know that your emotions, your feelings, what you're actually going through doesn't define marriage. No. Your experience doesn't define marriage. So we will not allow the world give us a definition of marriage. We are going to go by the principles. We are going to go by the parameters God Himself placed for us to get into it. So if you didn't get into it through the parameters and the principles that God placed, you don't expect to enjoy what you didn't plan for. You don't expect to experience or to benefit what you didn't program. Remember, in one of our last videos, I said, you only get what you prepare for. There is no quick fix miracles in becoming successful. There are no quick fix specialists. So if you must enjoy your marriage, you must prepare to enjoy the marriage. Does any specialist become a specialist overnight or accidentally? Why now should we think that in marriage we will just get to enjoy marriage without prior preparation? It doesn't work that way. It is high time we get adequate knowledge of what God does design and program for us in marriage. And He wanted it to reflect Him. So, right now, you have to restructure, you have to rethink how you are treating that marriage. You don't treat marriage as a trash. You don't treat marriage according to how you're feeling. Keep your emotions aside. Pick up what God says about marriage and go by it. If God was not interested in marriages, God will not look for a wife and give to Adam. Remember, Adam wasn't complaining. No, he was not. But God, because of His plan, the plan He had for marriage, He brought Adam a woman. He didn't end there. He said they should go ahead and multiply, and that came to them as a commandment. It was not by choice, it was a command that they should multiply. This is just to show you how much interest God has in marriages, how much interest God has in your marriage. You might be feeling pains, you might be going through hell, you might be going through hell in that marriage, you might be going through thin and thick. It is just an exposure of your ignorance. Don't be too high-minded to learn. You're not too big to learn. Yes. So if God was not interested in marriages, do you actually think that after the Holy Ghost got Mary the Theotokos pregnant, he would have taken Mary into marriage? Mary the Theotokos could have as well given birth in her parents' house, like many other young ladies get pregnant in their homes and give birth. But this is to show you how much interest God has in marriages, that even though he himself came and impregnated, Mary was conceived by the Holy Spirit, but yet he got into a man's house. She got married to a man. Why? Have you ever asked yourself that question? Do you think God was not interested in marriages? And he went ahead to insist that Abraham should have a child, even when he was already well stricken in age? Do you actually think God is not interested in your marriage? When Sarah was already after menopause, she was already after menopause, and the husband was well stricken in age, but God had to perform this miracle for them to have a child. Even when Abraham made a mistake and got a maid pregnant, he had a child with a maid, but God said, no, this is not my plan. This is not my plan. My plan is that a man should get married to one wife and they both should have a child of their own. What was the reason for all this? Galatians 3 verse 29 says, in you, in him, Abraham, shall all the families of the earth be blessed. So God's plan for mankind, his intent for mankind, the Abrahamic blessings that you so much confess and believe in, was supposed to pass through marriages. So if we treat marriages anyhow, we are not expecting to get the end product that God designed for marriage. That is why you can think that marriage is not a bed of roses. But as for me, marriage is a bed of roses. And when God designed that the Abrahamic blessings should pass through the family, you will be wondering that why? Why? God lives in you, a spirit, yes. You are an embodiment of the Godhead. The totality of the Godhead dwells in you, and you are a carrier of God. So he can as well bless you as an individual. But why will he be so much interested that you get married and he blesses you in the marriage? He blesses you in the family. Why? Have you ever been asking yourself these questions? Or you just want to listen to what society is talking about and you believe in what society is talking about, the garbage that the society believe in, you also believe in that garbage, and you think that you can get anything better from marriage that God designed? No. It's not as easy as you think it. You must go by the laid principles, then you will get the result. So God said in Galatians 3:29, in Abraham shall all the families of the nations be blessed. God is interested in the society, the state of the society. If you see a degrading society, know that there are many failed marriages in that society. As a matter of fact, the Roman Empire collapsed because there were so many divorces. The rate of divorce had attained 90%, to the extent that marriages were being discouraged. Subsequently, this almighty Roman Empire had to collapse. Why? Because marriages were failing. So if you see a deteriorating society, you see armed robbers everywhere, you see bandits, you see thieves, you see liars everywhere, it emanates from the marriage. You know why? Because marriage is the only institution where values are learned. No other institution, no other earthly institution It is in God's own institution called marriage that values are learned, integrity is learned, faithfulness is learned. So when you get married and you don't want to treat your marriage with much care and knowledge, you see, from the very beginning of the home, the children that are being raised, if they are not morally brought up, the entire society would deteriorate within no time. So when we begin to say we want to restructure the society, let's come back to the home. Let's come back and adjust our marriages. Let's come down and put our pride down and adjust this marriage, because values, integrity, faithfulness is learned in the home. That is why marriage is the heartbeat of God. Marriage is the heartbeat of God. God knows that to have a strong society, to have a strong church, it is from a strong marriage. It is from a strong family. So if we don't handle this aspect of marriage and make it valuable, make it strong, you go to the church, you see the father is in the bar, while the wife is in the church, while the children are in somewhere stealing. So when you see that kind of society, that is not the society God program. That is not how God designed it. And if you still think that marriage is not a bed of roses, it means you're thinking that even the heavenly union is not a bed of roses. You dare not think that way. Because the earthly marriage that God ordained was to reflect the heavenly marriage that He is presently experiencing. So make sure you subscribe to this channel. Make sure you turn on the notification bell so that each time I upload a video, you'll be the first to learn. Remember, this school, free of charge. Free of charge. And I stand for the fact that schools of marriages should be established everywhere in the world. If we want to change this world, if we want to change this society, we need to change the way marriages are seen, the way marriages are treated, the way marriages are handled, and it begins with you. Go for knowledge, readjust your marriage, and we are going to have better societies. Shalom.